What up, fool? I cracked my voice there a little bit. I've still been a little sick, but dude, I am amped up. We've been on a roll. Kev, welcome to the Mikey G Midlife Crisis Podcast Experience. How are you feeling, brother?
I'm doing great. Very excited for today.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm so excited to be here. As you can tell, I've got a lot of energy. I love what I do. And so, quick updates about Mikey G. We have tons going on in the background. I'm actually like deep in the AI space, talking to a lot of really cool projects, doing a little strategy. You all have probably heard of AI 16Z and Shaw, Project 89, Parsifal. We're going to have a space this Friday, bringing on all the top tier crack devs. And we're actually going to talk a lot broader about the implications of AI and Web3, opposed to just talking about what a freaking AI agent does. I think we've all heard the term AI agent and are kind of sick of that. So that being said, we also have a lot of abstract. I've got Moonsheep versus the man Sad Boy. He's coming on. We have a call tomorrow. And we've just got a lot cooking. So pay attention to the X and all the content that's coming out, and we're going to have a blast. But let's get into the man, the myth, the legend. This is all about you, Kev. And I am so excited to just go on this magical journey. But before we do that, here at Midlife Crisis Mikey G, we always do just a formal introduction. We got a couple quick hitters from Kev, maybe something you haven't heard before. But first off, marketer to the T. Used to own a marketing agency, ran the marketing agency. In addition to, part of that was storytelling. Passionate storyteller, very good storyteller, as you can see, because Bosu is about to hit you in the face with an insane story. And then finally, you probably didn't know this, but this dude loves to shred the waves. And that really spoke to my heart because I don't know if you remember, Kev, I live in San Diego and I live like less than 10 miles from the beach. And I got a 16-month-old son, and you're damn straight that one of the first things he's going to do is go to surf school. And I always said my perfect day would be watching the sun rise with my son, shred some waves, and then go play 18 holes of golf. So I'll get that once before he tells me, Dad, I never want to do that again, but I'll at least just get one shot. So welcome to the show, man. How did I do? Did I miss anything there?
No, sounds great, man, and I love that. One of my like goals in life is to get my son and my daughter both on a surfboard. So they're still young, but
See,
I've
see,
been
we've got
implementing it into their minds slowly and surely by showing them videos. And if I do this to my son, he's like, surf. And he's 3 years old.
yes,
He's three
see,
years old.
it's happening already, dude. It was my first like Christmas that my son actually like recognized what was going on. He was just going ho 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 ho. But I bought him a set of golf clubs. That dude's putting already. He's putting already. It's happening. I'm so excited. And his whole nursery is just Vandigons and surfboards and palm trees. So it's gonna happen. But dude, so excited for you to be here. That's the quick intro. And with that being said, the world famous midlife crisis question. Kev, how did you get to the seat that you're sitting in today? And I'm deeply passionate and interested about this conversation. Episode 1, childhood. Now, I'm interested here in vivid memories or things that help shape or mold the mindset that you have today. Episode 2, you said you did a marketing agency. Did you go to university? And what I'm really interested in here is wins, losses, failures, skill sets gained to which you think helped prep you for the Web3 journey. And then episode 3 is really that Web3, how you found Web3, and what the future looks like. So it's going to be a magical ride. Start anywhere in episode 1 that you want. If you're fumbling a little bit, I'll help lead you along the way, and we're going to have a great conversation. So let's have at it, my man.
Beautiful. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for setting this up. It's really awesome to be able to tell a bit of the story. Yeah, how did I get here? What's the
It's a
first
big
memory?
question. It's a big question.
Very big question, yes. And it's an interesting one because I work on everything that I do today with my two brothers, right? And so they've been a part of the past, yeah, since I can remember. Um, when I was very little, I fun fact, like the father, I've been telling my father's story over these last couple of days on different Twitter spaces. And interesting thing, it's not my biological father, but it's actually the father of my brothers, right? We have a
Mhm.
mom, we have different fathers, but their father grew
So
me up.
technically half brothers then, right?
Yeah, technically half brothers. And so, but I've always seen him as my father. But
Mhm.
and I'm gonna go give you guys a really personal inside look at where I was younger, because I feel that that really shaped me till today.
Love
Um,
this.
is that when I was really young, right? My two older brothers had a similar age; they were closer in age, and I was sort of the younger brother, right? And
Yep.
yeah, both my brothers were from Indonesia, like half Indonesian. I was always only the Dutch guy, and so I always felt kind of an outsider in my own family when I was very young, right? And I used to even make rap music about this when I became more of age. But I've always felt like an outsider because my real father, that I was really longing for, my biological dad, just one who just was such an asshole, and
Right.
he
Right.
was a drug addict, and he was never there, right? And so I've always had this longing of I want to belong to something, and I've always was kind of jealous of my brothers because they were so close together and they were so good in everything that they were doing. They were always making movies and they were always, creating things. And I was allowed to participate, but I don't know. In my mind, I felt like they only did that because I was the younger brother and they had to sort of take me with, right? And so
Right.
yeah, I always felt kind of lonely in the family, I would say. Um, and so yeah, as I was looking up to them, like they were like
Mhm.
these skillful
Mhm.
brothers, right? And so as we grew older, obviously I started to go on my own path and on my own search, right? And I did some soul searching that eventually led me to a better place. But when I think back of the past, that was definitely like a massive like part of it, right?
Yeah, and so thank you. One, thank you for being intimate and sharing that. I love that people are able to open up on this show. But it's interesting to me, it's in the pack. So how did you interpret that, right? Like, did that become the drive as I'm gonna make it, I wanna be included? Or, how did that like looking back, did that give you your passion and your motivator, like your drive, right? Like people have a lot of reasons as to where this drive came from. Looking back, is that probably it then, it sounds like?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I'm sure so. I guess, especially when I was, I guess, like 16, 17. It's when I quit high school, actually. So the university question.
Smart
Definitely,
move.
I didn't go to school at all. Even before that, I didn't really pay attention in class. I always,
Right.
got diagnosed with ADHD very early on, and so
Mhm,
when
mhm.
I was sitting in a classroom, I was always just looking outside, and I was like, "What the hell am I
Right.
doing here? I don't want to learn this stuff, right?" And I remember the first time when I really started to feel drive was when I actually started making music. Um,
Mm.
I had a group of friends. We were five guys. We're this rap group, and I was extremely dedicated to that, together with these guys, right? And we all came from a sort of similar background, without growing up with a father figure and all of those things. And so I think that was sort of the first sign. But if I reflect back on that now, it was mainly because I wanted to feel heard, in a
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it that actually turned into like a problem, like later on, right? As I was going, before like rediscovering myself, and then
We'll
becoming.
we'll get there, and you don't have to go super deep, but I
Yeah,
definitely that's interesting. I wanna
yeah,
make sure we tap on that. But
yeah.
I mean, isn't this so cool? Like, interesting, you start reflecting and you start peeling back the layers of
Mhm.
the onion a little bit. And one, the thing that happens, right, is I immediately I feel like you're already starting to become a buddy. You're feeling a little humanized, and I think this very lacks in the space. So one, thank you for sharing that. But two, it's setting us up for just like this more better, beautiful story in the future. One really interesting thing though that I want to point out is, I went through your Discord experience. Obviously, the storytelling is a big part, but there's some humans, and I pride myself on being one of these, is that you don't need a lot of interaction. You can tell they just have a good soul and they're a
Mm,
good human. And you're one of those people. And so my question is that came from somewhere. And it always brings up this really interesting internal question is like, and it is how much of that is inherent, and then how much of that is, like, experiences that mold you or making mistakes and realizing that I
mm.
needed to be a kinder soul. So looking back growing up, are there any other influences or things? Obviously, we have your brother that has, like, hit this drive. Did you have any, parental figures that, were more on the good side of things and impacted you in a way?
Yeah, totally. My grandma and my mother, and yeah, I always like we didn't have the easiest sort of youth, especially in terms of finances. Like my mom was just working day and night, right? Without so my father was gone. The father of my brothers also was not like full time in the picture. So it was my mom, my two older brothers, and my mom was just always working so hard for us, right? Like she was yeah basically gone from morning to evening just to make sure that we had food on the plate. And yeah, I don't know, she's very given, like
Yeah,
she's I guess, and that has both sides of sometimes putting herself aside, but she's really the type of person that just keeps on giving and giving and giving and
yeah,
wants to make sure that everybody else is like set. And yeah, I think actually the whole, I'm blessed that we had that hard time, because that's why I can appreciate a lot more things now.
yes.
I even don't need that much in life. Like I'm fine with like, just being, and that's okay. So yeah, and my grandma actually the same. I think those two figures in my life have been a very big impact also for my brothers, of just instilling kindness in us, and
Yeah,
doing things for others, and yeah, feeling empathy as well. So
yeah.
I would definitely say they have been like huge forces. Yeah, in that.
That's amazing, man, and, I have a little similar story in that well, like, not super similar, but my parents got divorced when I was little, right? And that had a profound impact on me. The point I'm making is what I'm hearing from you too is support networks are critical. And it doesn't have to be the perfect support network, right? But you had people in there that taught you the abundance of kindness and doing the right thing, and you saw that for just giving because you're graceful and that's the thing that you're supposed to do. That's so really really important. And most people that are founders and are extremely successful have had that support network early in their age to help think because like you said too, you don't need a lot. That's another way of saying you're not chasing the money. You're really doing something that you're passionate about, and that's also something really critically important. So
Mm.
what now I'm interested in, and thank you for sharing all this, man. This is fantastic. Moving forward, you made a really, really interesting comment. I wanted to be loud in a rapper, which then came back to haunt me a little bit earlier. So now I want to go from rapping to, between that into Web3 because you shared some intimate details. I'm really getting in a picture of who you are already. But in this time, now I want to talk about mistakes. And I want to talk about failures, and I want to talk about the things that you learned, and go ahead and sprinkle a little wins in there too,
Mm.
because also failure makes us stronger, of course. But let's talk about that rocky road and just kind of like self discovery, because that stuff is insanely fascinating to me.
Yeah. At some point, well, when I was, I believe, like 18 or 19,
Hmm.
we were like hitting it hard in the studios and everything. And I was kind of in a very bad place at the same time, like we were a lot outside on the streets, not doing the best things that that young people can do, right?
Right?
Like somewhere, I don't know why, but we were always driven by a passion almost to become like gangsters or something like that, right?
So, were there any movies that were influencing this? Is the
Oh
question.
yeah, totally. Like all the mafia movies, like and a lot of other rappers as well in the Netherlands that we really looked up to. They were like
Definitely
making.
watching Scarface, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And so yeah, it was there. There's been two big events in my life that made a really big shift for me, and that's actually the passing away of first my grandma. That was
Mm,
already when I was 17. That gave me really a hard
right,
like slap in the face of like, hey, life is very short, right? And
right.
I've always loved my grandma, especially when I was younger. And then when I was 16, 17, I didn't spend any time really more with her.
Right.
And when she passed away, that slapped me in the face and gave me a realization of like, damn, dude, like, what are you focused on? Right. Like,
Right.
the environment you're in, it's not good. Like, you really have to make a change. And then later on, when I was about 18 or 19, I got the news that my father was in the hospital, like my biological father that I never had that
Mm,
connection with, that I truly wanted in
right.
my life. He passed away as well. And that was actually the moment that everything shifted. And I was like, I need to get out of here. And I actually booked a ticket to Spain. That's the moment I left, right? I left the
It's
Netherlands behind.
so I'm really interested in this, because I think I told you I went through a major depressive order in 2018. Almost died second to second, like 7, 8 months in a row. But, there were different ways that I recognized, like, one example is I woke up in the morning and it was like a movie, right? Like, I looked into the mirror and I went down the list of 45 things as to why my life was shitty and why I felt the way I felt. And then I got to that bottom of the list, and it was this very clear, like, "Oh my god, it's me."
Mm.
And, like, you can't forget that moment, right? And that was, like, the beginning of my healing. I'm interested to you, was it just going through that experience, or do you have a vivid memory just like, "Holy shit, I'm booking a ticket and now we're going."
It's, well, I would say, like, when I look back at my whole youth, I was kind of depressed all of the time,
Mm.
right? Like, it's very depressive for me that time because I was constantly in.
Same, man, same. Yeah, same.
Yeah, and I can't look different back at it either. Like, and it's also very clear to me. Like, and it's kind of hard to describe, like, what it was, like this constant feeling of just being done with life. Just I just
Right,
hated it.
right,
It's
right.
like almost like a negative
Yeah.
outcome. Now, like years later, I found out like it's all the trauma probably that was stuck in my body, and I couldn't really deal with it.
100%, man. 100%.
Um,
Dude, thank you so much for sharing. This is amazing.
yeah, of course. And yeah, I kind of always knew, even when me and my friends were doing like bad things, I always had this voice in my mind, like, this is not who you are. Like, you're
Right.
supposed to do something greater than this, but we'll do that tomorrow. I was also smoking quite a lot in that time, like, from the Netherlands, like, was kind of
Yeah,
normalized around my friends. We were
yeah.
drinking a lot, like typical, that the typical kind. It's almost stereotype nowadays, I feel
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Like, and so I kind of knew it, but those events were like the last sort of pushes. Like, if you don't change now, there was actually one very crazy moment
Yeah.
where I started to realize that it's either me making a choice or life is going to choose for me. And I started to
Mm,
realize that life sort of happens for me and it's trying to teach me stuff, right? And so when my father passed away, there was a moment I was literally, for example, like in that time, I was very kind of childish, right? I was living with my mom. My mom she was cleaning my room. She was doing the wash for me. I was very childish still at 16 or
right.
17, right? And I just, after my father passed away, I had this realization of like, damn, if I'm not going to make this change and move away from my mom and just break out of this bubble, something is going to happen to her. Like, I literally just need to get out of here and grow up. It's time, right? And the shift just happened, and those two slaps were just big events. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you for sharing that, man. So that's it. You have your version of and I have my version of my slap, and shit's changing. You're buying a ticket and you're going to Spain. So that's one of your first big aha moments.
yeah.
Let's talk about now this growth period, right? And as you're growing, what are the things that you're learning? You're probably failing again or you're having some wins. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, first when I arrived in Spain, right, I was still like partying like insane. Like my
Yeah.
18, 19-year-old, I was just going at it, right? But I did feel like a kind of shift happening in me, that now it came more from a I'm enjoying life kind of place. But deep
Yes.
inside, I still felt like, but there's something on the lane that I still need to solve, right? And so,
Mhm.
um, I remember, as just growing a little bit older, and shifting a little after a couple of years of like partying and stuff. I shifted away a little bit. I started to work seriously for the first time. That I was like, okay, now I'm focused on work. Getting like a normal life. And actually, I found like Anthony Robbins was one of the first people that I found online that I started listening to and really started to make an impact on me.
Yeah.
Maybe now while I say it, he kind of played the father figure for me that I've always needed, right? Like he was telling me the things I needed to hear.
Yes, yes. And back to the point though that we were talking about, like, and this is, I think, a really critical message that people need to hear, is because I realize this too, like, going through my stuff is, um, I think a lot of people picture, like, if I don't have this perfect upbringing or childhood, or if I don't have X, Y, and Z, I'm always gonna be broken and everything's not gonna be perfect. But to your point about finding a figure online or a mentor or someone completely not related to you, if you can put those pieces together, anything is possible, right? And that's what I love what we do here, is because you've just talked about some real big hardships, but look at you, man. You have one of the most hyped anime projects in Web3. And people, I've had hundreds of messages because now you're sharing your specific story. Someone's gonna listen to this and they'll be like, holy shit, man. Kev did it. He's helped sharing these pieces of the puzzle for me, and I can do it as well too. So I love that you gave that tidbit, because that's a really great insight. So thank you. Keep on going. Sorry, I just had to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. And actually, even like a even crazier story when I came to Spain as first, I was in the north of Spain. Then I went to Ibiza,
Mhm.
partied my ass off. All my friends that I was with started to leave, and I just knew like I don't want to go back to the Netherlands. Like whatever I do, I'm not going back. Right? Like
Right.
I've now stepped out of that, not going home. Then I had this one friend left, and we actually we started throwing up a coin and coin flip. Like where do we
Uh-huh.
go next? Right? And then one of the islands that I'm still on today, actually came through that coin flip. But when we
Crazy.
arrived here, like this is insane. Like we were in Ibiza, we had no money left, like zero, right? I could go minus 500 on my bank account, so I
Yeah.
did that. I took that, or like okay, let's flip a coin. We were able to fix some money through some sales of tickets that we've done, like on parties and stuff in Ibiza, and we booked these tickets, and so we arrived here on the island. And we calculated that with it $500 we can take a hostel. We have a couple days, we can find work, and then everything will become good. And yeah, obviously we were still in this party mode, and so and this is before the personal growth stuff, right? Just a
Right.
side story. We came to the island here. We're here for 3-4 days. We partied. All the money was gone, right? So we woke up. The hostel owner was like, "Guys, like you have to pay." We're like, "We don't have money anymore." Like, okay, you need to get out. And so me and my friend, we literally walked with our suitcase to the town, and we put our suitcases down. We're like in the middle of the day. It was sunny outside. We're laying on our suitcases. I was like, "Dude, this is it. Like we've traveled all the time. Like I need to call my mom. Like I'm gonna go home. Like it's over.
Whoa.
No more money left. Like that's it." And he was like, "No, man, I've been so many times through this. We're gonna stay." I was like, "But how? We have €4, like $6-7 left. We got
That's
an apple.
amazing.
We got a banana. Like that's it. How the hell are we gonna survive, right?" And so, we told ourselves, let's just start walking. And like we've lived like outside for like 3 weeks or something like that.
Wow.
Some hotel lobbies. We were eating out of hotel restaurant. We just survived until we eventually started to get some work, and we pushed ourselves up until later on, like I started actually to have a job. But it was quite crazy because we literally had nothing when we came to this island, and later started to find some work, and did the whole personal growth thing, started to learn. And that's
Right.
actually there was
Wait,
one.
real quick. I need to jump in here because this is again, this is a tangible example. I mean, you were homeless, man. You're on an island, you got €4, you got a piece of fruit in your hand, and that's it. So, just this part, I'm interested in. All right, so you're grabbing food from restaurants just to survive. But
Yeah.
then how to start making income? Was it just odd jobs doing anything, or did you try to say like, "Hey, I like marketing," or "I'm a good
Mm,
storyteller and I'm gonna apply it that way." I'm interested in the actual, like, how did
yeah.
this happen to get
Yeah.
money and start getting jobs?
Yeah, totally. We actually because in Ibiza, I don't know if you know Ibiza, a big party place like in Spain.
I've heard of it. I've always wanted to go, but I'm too old to go now. I could care less about a phone party.
Yeah, fair enough. One of the biggest party players. What we used to do there is sell tickets to parties, right?
Mm,
We walk on the beach, and so when we were in this island actually, and we're like on the street, that was the thing that we wanted to do as well. So we actually found like some sales guys who were like, listen, let me sell for you guys. And we started selling tickets on the beach, right? And so that's how we started getting some income. And you would sell a ticket, you earn $20, right? You would sell 5 a day, you have some income. We just had a problem because we just kept drinking everything away, right? So every time we would have some money, man, we were just living so in the moment, you know. And now even when I look back at it, it's even more fun. Like, so there were moments there you're like doubting, like, what the hell are we doing? But at the same time, we're just going with the flow and just, you know, seeing what happens. Just no care for the rest of the world and just go. And so we started selling some tickets, and then eventually I actually started getting a job in a surf school where I did some administration work. Then at the same time, I started working in a bars. I just started taking jobs on everywhere, right? And then getting some money in. Eventually, found a house, and started living.
And thank you for sharing that, because I think visualizing like the tangible thing of, and I think this happens a lot. And I would love to just get your input on this too. I've come to the conclusion, talking to hundreds of founders and just my experience myself, surrounding making money with what you're passionate about to get you through the shit, because you're going to see a lot of it, is one of the most successful ways that you can grow and learn. What are your thoughts about that concept?
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, at that time we were definitely more in survival mode, but obviously.
Oh, I'm just saying in general at this point, you know, like we've shared, but like for you to be an entrepreneur yourself, right?
Mhm.
You've been on Spaces for the last week. You're not sleeping. You got meetings. You got all this stuff.
Yeah.
How do you get through that? For me, it is surrounding
Mhm.
that craziness with drive and something that you love and are passionate about. Like,
Yeah.
I woke up at 5:30 this morning for this interview, but I was jacked up when I woke up, right? Because I
Yeah.
love doing this. What are your thoughts about that concept in general?
Totally. No, 100%. And I think you need to find that really within yourself. But obviously, it's a lot easier if you actually enjoy the thing. And
Yes.
what I did learn is that everybody kind of functions very different, right? Like I, I try to get less of that, but I function best with my back against the wall, right? Like
Yes.
if there's no other choice, I function like in the best way possible, in like the heat of the moment, like in the battle, right? But yeah, obviously, like if you truly hate what you're doing, and that's actually an interesting one, because my last job that I've ever had is now like maybe 14 years ago, 13 years ago. I was working in this bar. I was PRing, right? I was standing in front of the door 12 hours a day, bringing people into a bar, and
Right.
I hated it,
Yeah.
right? Even though I was standing in the sun all day, you know, I just hated it because I felt lifeless. Bringing people into a bar, like, I don't enjoy this, right? And then, like the owner of the bar came in. I worked there for 4 years, and he was like, to my colleague, can you tell that new guy that he has to stand on the corner? And my colleague came to me and he was like, he's telling the new guy. I'm like, what the hell? I've worked here for 4 years. Felt so unappreciated, right?
Yeah.
That I was just like, you know what? Screw this. I quit. It was my last job I've ever had. I started a business after that became very successful. But just as a pointer towards, like, I had no passion. I hated my days there, right? And
Right.
so I think it's extremely important to find something that you enjoy. And as well, if you have something, I don't know, like, I personally love growth and learning, right? Progress. So if
Yes.
I have to do the same thing over and over and it doesn't move you forward, you kind of die, right? So it feels like you either grow and learn or you die. Like,
Dude, I say this all the time on this show. Like, people, if we could just, me and you, resonate this message with people in the community. There's tons of people watching, asking questions right now. People, leave with this. The day you stop learning, I promise you, you're starting to die. It's 100% true. And you need to figure out how to fall in love with learning. And you just said that, man. And it's like, I wanted to stop and just resonate that message because it's so, so important.
and
So, go ahead.
that's the biggest one. You need to fall in love with learning. And
Yes.
that changed everything for me. And I'd always thought, like, right, I quit high school when I was like 15, 16 years old. I thought I hated learning my whole life.
Yeah.
Right. And what I later realized is I love learning things that I can apply directly. Right. And so if later on when I quit my job there, right, I knew one thing: I want to do marketing for restaurants. That was the whole thing, that I'm going to do that because I did a little content on socials for this place I was working at. So I was like, this guy's paying me $100 for this a month. I can probably find 10 of these guys, right? And so what did I need to learn? How do I sell this? So what do I do? Find a sales course online, learn, apply, right? I would literally walk from morning till evening. From literally 8 in the morning, I would leave house and I would come home at 12, and I would walk into every single restaurant, right? And I would literally learn what I've learned in this course and apply it directly there, right? And so I think, I became obsessed when I started finding that out, right? I'm like, oh, wait. And then I became better at it. I was like, damn, this stuff actually works.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this is so cool, man. There's a bunch of questions right now on what the community can do. And this is my thought, and I love your thoughts about this. As you lead up to Mint, and as you even past Mint, you continue to grow. These life lessons that we're talking about right now are so critically important. I think it's important to get this message out, and we don't enough. So when we start cutting this stuff up into shorts, I think as much as you guys want to be and get the artwork out there, I think you should be taking these videos and getting these messages about your leader and genuine and the learning lessons out there just as much. What are your thoughts about that? Do you agree with that, or you like that concept?
I 100% agree. Like, ultimately underlaying, and a lot of people might even don't realize it, but Final Bosu, we're actually more. I had this conversation with Leon Abud from Unfungible the other day, and he said, "You guys are not an anime brand. You guys are actually a lifestyle brand, right? And you're trying to sell the message of against all odds.
Yeah,
we're actually a personal growth combined with storytelling brand, and so these this is all a big part of it. And so 100%, I think it's very crucial, especially from a founder's perspective.
Yeah, and so you heard it here, folks. Everybody that is watching. As critical as it is to share the artwork and the anime and the story message, it really is against all odds and everything that we're talking about here. Hence why I knew before we talked it was going to be amazing, because I had felt that vibe before just going through your experience. So listen, I could talk for another 6 hours about this stuff. As you can see, I get very excited about it. But we have a finite amount of time, so I want to make sure that we transition into Final Bosu, into your Web3 journey. So let's make that transition now, unless there's anything else. I mean, because we've got a ton of information now. And I think you capped it perfectly. Was one of the biggest growth modes or growth things that you said was learn from everything and the continued pursuit of learning.
Yeah.
Before we get into Web3, is there anything you want to add on to that? Or do you feel like we did a good job about prepping you? Because the other thing we're doing here is I'm really starting to get a holistic picture of you as a person, as of a founder. And now we're going to go into what you're doing. And I believe that you're not going to give up, because we talked about your back against the wall. I also believe that you're going to keep on learning and pivoting, because guess what? You're damn straight. If you don't have that mindset in Web3, you're going to fail very quickly, because it changes on a second by second basis. So we've got these two characteristics. Anything else you want to add, or we'll get into Final Bosu?
Yeah, one bridge I would like to make there is that once I went through so many learning lessons once I actually started a marketing agency, right? Like, in the very short picture of that is that I started out charging $100 a month. Sold like a bunch of clients into it, and then at some point I came to a stage where I started raising my prices. I started getting literally clients from all over the world, servicing them with advertising. I started building an office. I started building, a team. And there was a point where that became sort of my new standard. So understand that I literally came from nothing when I came on the island, until having a business that was just bringing money in like I had never seen before, right? Like, not even as a child. And the interesting thing was that with that business, I was chasing money. In a way, I was first chasing growth, right? Learning, until I felt like, okay, I've hit my cap here.
Yep.
Money became like a new standard. Once you get 10, 15, 20, 30,000 euros a month, you're like, okay, and now, right? Like, and there's always a higher level. And so I realized that. But what I realized at some point, especially 3 years ago, just before we were starting Final Bosu, is what's my purpose here, right? And I've always tried to tell myself, yeah, but I love helping restaurant owners because I see them so happy every month after I deliver them results. But somehow, still something felt like, I don't know, but it didn't feel like my life mission in a way, right?
Right.
It still felt like something was missing. And I
Mm.
got that realization once we started Final Boss. So I was like, this is it. It
Yes.
was daylight, right? And so, yeah, I wanted to make that bridge for people
Dude,
to see.
but thank you for making that bridge too, because I'll mirror my instance right too. I found Web3 and I knew immediately it was it because I'm a brand marketing guy.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I tell you, like I was managing a billions of dollar budget, making commercials and stuff. But when I found Web3, I saw, oh my God, this is going to be a revolutionary way to build community and brands. And we're seeing it right now, hence why you exist and why people are so excited, right? And not only can you build it in a unique way, it can become a billion-dollar company, which is insane to even think about, right? But I did my first podcast and now I was like, holy shit, this is it. I love people. I love Web3. I will and tell me about this too, because I hear this often and I actually agree with it. If you find something that you will do for free and not stop the rest of your life, you probably found something interesting. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I think life is so short, right? That's the the big lesson we have. And so, I actually one fun fact is a couple years back, I think now about 8 years ago, I want to really deal like with the trauma from the past, and I found
Right.
a meditation center in Spain called
No,
Vipassana. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
I
it's
have not.
it's quite extreme. It's 10 days in silence, 12 hours a day, meditation, sitting still, no eye contact, no phone. Like 10 days locked in, you and only you. It was the most painful and rewarding experience of my life, right? But what I realized as well, is that if you live in the present, like that's the best place to live in, but you can also design it the way you want to, right? And so, why would you choose to do something that makes you miserable? Like you can literally do whatever. I mean, nowadays, if you want to poop and make money, there's probably a way of doing that.
That is a short right there for sure. Yeah, but it is true. It's true because you have this access to technology, and there's some weird cohort out there that just loves exactly what you love too, and you can
Yes.
find your group of people, which is amazing. But that was a good way to put it.
Bit of a weird example, but it was
Yeah,
the first thing that came to mind.
no, it's totally cool.
But I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So fine. This is another advice for the community. If you want to help out Kev, Final Bosu, and even Mikey G, find something that you want to do for free and then figure out that thing and how you can wrap it into the community and the message of against all odds. There you go. There's another example. We're just firing examples out here, people, of how you can make Kev's life better. Because I will say this, and before we even get into Web3, just because it's top of mind, Azuki obviously comes to mind. And everyone talks about, listen, at the end of the day, you're never going to argue. You're never going to convince me that there isn't something about being first. And even if you're not the first, perceived first, right? Because I have JR on who's doing the district, who was actually original co-founder of Oniforce. Oniforce was actually really the first like anime PFP meta. But Azuki is always interpreted as the first just because how big it got. But it's very clear in my mind the community is the reason why Azuki is Azuki.
Yeah.
And it is because it's turned into like a being DAO. Like every part and different facets of this lore have become spin-off communities. And people are just so obsessed with it. So I think obviously you have the foundation to do such a thing. But I would love your thoughts on, from a community perspective, why you think Azuki was successful, and then learning lessons from there that you would love to see your community apply to your project?
Oh, I love that. I think a big part. Well, first, I just want to applaud them for their execution, right? As a team, I think they've just created products and were able to share their vision,
Hmm.
and communicate that extremely well for because I think it goes hand in hand, right? I just feel extremely responsible as a founder to make our community excited, right? I think that it's up to me to one, have a grandiose vision, and to as well communicate it in a way so they feel the value and they feel like, okay, I want to get behind this. And I think Azuki has done it really well, right? Same like Pudgy, another really great example, like Luca, that's absolutely crushing that. And so I think that that has been great. What I love about the Azuki community is one, the accountability and responsibility that the community takes for pushing the brand, because I think that they, Pudgy, maybe Bored Apes as well, well, for sure Bored Apes as well, are some of the best community members that are repping the PFP. I think if I think about community, or I think about what kind of businesses they are, right? Media franchises, IP, right? Those kind of businesses, their whole goal is to expand the IP and show the characters as much as they can. And I think that the community of Azuki, for example, has done it really well, right? Repping it as a PFP, hosting spaces, building mini brands under the umbrella of. I think it's all of those things that are extremely important. One thing I've noticed, like over these last days, since the anime news comes out, the Azuki community is hosting daily spaces. The
Yeah.
community is hosting spaces to
Yeah.
make sure that everybody understands it well. Newcomers that are coming in, they explain that very well, and so I think they've crushed it in that sense, right? But it goes hand in hand. I feel as a company, you have to build that culture. You have to show the vision, and yeah, it's the same in company building. In the end of the day, right? It kind of feels like the leader needs to, if the leader is lazy, like, you can expect the rest of the horde also to be lazy, right?
Yeah.
It sets
Yeah.
the tone for the rest.
Yeah.
Um,
The one question, or the one answer, or insight that I didn't hear that I'm very interested in is, uh 99% of Web3 founders that come on this show say don't start a Web3 project because, or company, because it's brutal, right? Because you have a community that the instant they think you're going to screw up or have screwed up, you're crucified. But you're still trying to run a company as well. So my question to you is, what do you think the Azukis of the world, what kept that? Because the floor price is inevitably gonna shit. That it's impossible to keep a floor price high forever, right? So that's gonna drop. There's gonna be times where you're grinding and maybe not be able to communicate as much as you want, but you're just accountable for that as a Web3 company. That moment, those moments in time, what do you think keeps them going? Is it because you did such a good job explaining the lore and the mission that they're driven by that? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I think so. I think it has to do with that, but there will always need to be a glimpse of hope. And for a community, I was in NFT Paris last year, and it was first time that I heard like Luca speaking on stage, and
Mhm.
he was talking to the community, and really like, guys, like what we all just went through, right? But we kept believing, we kept pushing, and look at us now, right? And there really, I don't know, there was that moment that I don't know. It really, it really felt like um, Luca had this warm aura around him. Like, if we all stand together,
Yeah,
we can do this, right? And
yeah,
so I think
yeah.
it's a bit of belief and hope that everybody needs to keep. Of course, prices go up and go down. I personally think that it should also go beyond that. That's something that I hope for, right? I hope that the people that want to become part of Final Bosu are people that want to be part of something really cool in a way, right? If I think of my favorite anime brands, or even Star Wars, or my favorite Marvel movies, like, if I could be with these guys from day one, just watching behind the scenes alone, like it would be really cool to me
Yeah.
because I just love what they have built, right? And so I think that alone, I would want. That's the main reason why I would want people to be a part of it, right? That
Yeah.
should be the first and foremost reason. Like that's why also we've positioned like these main characters and things like that a lot, so that hopefully people see, oh wow, these characters actually have potential, and now we see it very early. Imagine if they keep building, and in 10 years from now, this will be this massive anime brand.
Right.
Um,
So you said two amazing things. One, I think this is a huge selling point and should be part of a narrative because I don't think anybody's articulated it the way you just did effectively, which is, guys, you have day one access to behind the scenes, right? When I was doing my multi-billion-dollar commercials,
yeah.
guess what the most popular content was? The
Yeah.
video camera behind the scenes showing people how we shot a Geico Gecko commercial or a caveman commercial, right? And people ate that shit up. It was by far the most watched thing on our YouTube channel. And so that like inside access, I think people have used this concept but haven't done it effectively, right?
Yeah.
Like you could literally even build a storyline around your behind the scenes inside access content, right?
Yeah.
And then use the community to get their input on what would they like to see. And I think that's another advice or thing that I, just definitely think about because we know community is key. But the number one mistake that I've seen founders that come through the show is there's a balance between no offense to all community watching right now, but you always don't have the greatest ideas, people. You just got to accept that. And there's a balance as a founder on what will you act on and what won't you act on. But having that voice is such a powerful tool. So loved that point. But
I love
then,
that.
but then two, we'll record that. That's gonna be short too. But then two, hope, man.
Yeah.
Like another way to say against all odds is just straight hope. And I think you nailed it. And I think the puzzle to solve for founders is, like you said, when Luca was talking, you got that realization that there's like an aura around him and you
Mhm.
felt hope. If you can continue to convey hope through the Bosu and Against All Odd brands, you have a damn good shot because I think what you've already proven and done is you can draw cool shit and you can build some really cool lore. So the rest of it comes down to execution, how you manage the community, and
Yeah.
how you can convey the future. And I think it's as simple as the word hope, man. So I think
Mm.
you said a lot of beautiful things, and I wanted to extract that for you.
I love that. Thanks. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. And it makes me realize as well, like the things that we see for Final Basu, I think it's a lot about friendship and growth. Do you know the YouTube channel Yes Theory?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love these guys, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really great example of what I would love for Final Basu, right? I'd love our community to come together, right, and grow together. I think not only digitally but as well in real life. I think that those are like the best moments as well. And I think that's something I realized a lot in NFT Paris. That for the first time, actually meeting all the people behind the PFPs. It's like these are actual real people, all
Yeah.
going through their own shit, through their own life,
Yeah.
all trying to have fun, all trying to build something for themselves. So yeah, I want Final Boss to be that, right?
Yeah.
Like I have all the time like this picture in my mind of, maybe I don't know, like don't keep me to the promises, but maybe one day we, have a whole hotel for us where we're all together and we're going through personal growth experiences. Maybe we can invite Tony Robbins or something like.
I'm gonna be there, brother. I'm gonna be helping you lead that charge. No doubt in my mind.
That will be epic, right?
Yeah, I love it, man. And this is a perfect example. And then I promise we'll talk about it. We got like 20 minutes, so I want to get to the project. But everything that we've talked about, I think, is way more important, to be honest, because you're doing a very good job of getting your visuals out and stuff. This is the story I'll leave for the community, for you, and hopefully people remember this. But friendships, hope, and against all odds, that is what everybody needs to remember, because I was a one of 15 hate beast mods, which was one of the probably most hype projects to ever exist in this space. There was a million people in the Discord server. It was insane, right? In the first month of that server was it was the most magical thing I've ever seen. There were so many channels dedicated to there was
Mm.
Photoshop experts, there was filmmakers, there were speech therapists, and everyone was just in voice chat 24/7, sharing the love, building friendships. Thousands of friendships were made in that month period. This was September, October time in 2021. I still talk to people today that were like, "Mikey G, thank you
Mm.
for saying X. Thank you for introducing me to X. We're still friends to this day, and we've built a company together." That is what it's about. But the instant people started realizing 0.00001% of people are gonna get hate list, it just turned inside out on itself
Yeah.
because money became the issue. That was the driver, and it got so toxic the last month, and it was devastating for me as someone that saw this evolution of this beautiful community just to implode on itself. So
Yeah.
that's like the lesson that I just want to reiterate, and it can happen to anybody. So you have to do your biggest job to make what Kev is saying against all odds, hope, growth, learning, friendship. You have to keep that at the core of your motivator.
Mm.
Not saying
Mm.
money is not a part. Like, listen, we got to be realistic. We need food and a roof on the table, but just make it be a bigger part of than the money thing, right? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, maybe you kind of answered it. I wanted to ask you indeed, like if you could go back in time, right? Like, are there things that you would do different? Maybe it's spreading more of these messages. Um,
100%. I would do it. My brand has evolved into what I think Web3 should be. And it is deep connections and it is understanding people and the motivations. What's
mm.
cool is this next era of Web3 is people like yourself that are born entrepreneurs. It's not listen, I was talking to 19-year-old, no offense to young people. I was talking to 19-year-olds that were just trying to make money, right? Back in 2021. This new evolution of entrepreneurs and Web3 founders get it more. But
Yeah.
looking back, uh, the biggest the biggest mistakes that I have made in the beginning is I looked at a lot of my relationships as a way to get like more alpha or meet some new people. But
Yeah.
it is all about building relationships. The
Mm.
best thing that I have done in the last 4 years, the reason why when you tweeted, "Hey, I need to get on some podcasts," and the first 6 comments were, "You gotta talk to Mikey G."
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't have 150,000 followers, you
Yeah.
know? I've got 12,000, but you're damn straight I probably have the most top tier 12,000 followers in this space because
Mhm.
80% of them are founders and I've networked right. So the thing that I have done, I've spent thousands of hours on the phone saying hi to people,
Mm.
just doing this. And
I love that.
people, a Discord message is a great start, but you better get on the phone and talk to people. Turn that video camera on. It is
Yeah.
by far the most impactful thing I've done, and I've been able to monetize a business with
Mm.
12,000 followers and built a brand where I can go into pretty much any Discord and someone's gonna be like, "I know Mikey G." And I
Mm.
didn't even realize this until my new co-founder that I do strategy with, he was like, "Yeah, I was, like, just reaching out, seeing if people heard of you." And they were like, "They know you." And because I'm just humble, I didn't realize that people actually knew who I was.
Yeah.
I think the mistake in the beginning was not building and spending time on deeper relationships, because even though at the time it seems like, "Oh my god, why am I wasting my time?" I promise you it comes back in 100x, right?
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I talk a lot as well about like the type of onboarding that you do, right? And it's also why education has been such an important part for us. If you go into the Discord, you watch those first videos, you get educated so that you can actually make a decision. I like this or you don't like it, right? And so
Yeah.
I feel like that at least pushes people to a place where you understand it better and then can be there automatically for different reasons. And actually, against all odds, from a business perspective and marketing and positioning actually got born from the fact that how are we going to position our brand. And I think if there's one thing I've learned is I want to activate a community, and I feel that if we want to activate a community, it should be driven by a similar passion and value and vision. And if we would say, hey, we're going to build this anime franchise, right? And that's the North Star. And we will, that is. But if that's the only thing, people are kind of waiting for you to do that. But on the moment our mint is finished, our against all odds mission is already succeeded, but on a small scale, right? It's already happening. The fact that everybody starts screaming on Twitter now and making posts about against the odds. Yesterday, there was a girl that was making a video recording of herself telling her against the odds story. That's like our mission is succeeding right now in the real-time moment, right? And we don't have to wait till the franchise is $1 billion franchise. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. And that's the complicated thing of this space sometimes, because NFTs, the value of NFTs as people value them, of making money, comes from the scarcity place. But at the same time, you want to involve more people. So there's a couple things planned straight away after mint that are going to come out very fast. In case the people don't make this mint, right, they can be included there and they can become a part of the brand. So that's a little bit of alpha here directly.
Alpha alert. Speaking of alpha, I've been looking at your darn shirt the whole time. I don't know why, but it's what is that?
I'm not going to tell. Maybe people can guess what it is.
Guess what it is? I have no. It looks like something with the horns and obviously a no symbol. So I'm not sure what that means.
Well, in our storyline, there's people with growth pads all over their body, right? I don't know if you've seen the videos probably in the Discord, but people in this universe is almost a tattoo. Like if you actually pressed on your wrist, it lightens up. And
nice.
Then there's these nodes that are standing for your growth pad. It's literally called a growth pad. And whenever you learn or you grow, they close off until it reaches the top. And when it does, it summons the final boss, right? But in this universe of final Bosu, these final bosses are very dangerous. And once they come out, and every single person in this universe has their own final boss. Mickey G has his own, Kevin has his own. We all have our own final boss to defeat in real life, but as well in the fictional world. But these final bosses, when they come out, they destroy you and everything around themselves. And so in this world where we live in, everybody is afraid for these final bosses, aka everybody is afraid for growth and progress, right? And so final bosses are not allowed, right? We live
that all makes sense.
Where these guys are not allowed because they're dangerous, right? But the question is, who are you going to be, right? Are you going to be the person that stays, stagnant of growth, never grows any longer, or are you going to complete your growth path against all odds?
That's amazing. So is that logo just a prototype, or are you going to be using that in the lore as well?
Well, the logo itself was designed, and there's some stuff coming out in the next days, like mini whitelist experiences, things. These things will be a part of that. But this was actually a gift from my brothers when they came to my house for the first time ever in history. They came with the two of them to my house here in Spain last month or 2 months maybe ago. And we spent a week together working and brainstorming. And they just printed it just as a gift for me. Like, hey, Kev, your first Final Bosu merch. So it's not an official release or anything like that, right? It's a simple thing.
So it technically means no Final Bosu, right?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for that, Laura. Thank you for a little alpha, too. I actually was going to ask you that before because that always helps for content as release of the shorts too, but you dropped it. You dropped a ton of alpha right there. Okay, so we only have 15 minutes. I want to give you this time. I do have one question, one more question at the end. Very softball. Basically, I want to know Final Bosu pitch. We have gotten an amazing picture of who you are. I believe in you as a human being. I know that you're passionate about storytelling. You're going to push it forward. Tell me what you want to tell me about what you're really concentrating on with Final Bosu. Obviously IP, but talk to me a little bit more about that. And then I'm interested in the next month or two, as much as you can reveal. Do not over reveal. That's the #1 mistake that people have made on this show. So go with that with the last 10 minutes. I'll ask the last question and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I think that the core mission is really creating a movement of against all odds, right? Where we empower a group of people to stand behind this message. And I think, yeah, if people have listened this far today, you kind of got my against all odds story, right? I
Yeah.
think there's many within the story interwoven. There's this short story that I usually tell about my father, right, or my Indonesian dad. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard that story, or I can or throw it
No.
in very shortly.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, my father was 63 years old and got the call that he only had 3 days to live. He was laying in the hospital. He had heart problems, right? And yeah, his body basically was going to overflow with liquid. And so he was in the
Oh,
hospital. Doctors told him, like, listen, you got 3 days, that's it, right? No more than
yeah.
that. If you're lucky, 4. If you're lucky, 5.
Yeah.
And what's kind of interesting is that he was 9 years old. His own father kidnapped him, right? Picture this, kidnapped him in Indonesia, in Java, in a very small village called Blitar. Poor
Right.
village. Mom's still there, brother's still there. One day, out of the blue, he disappears. Later found out his father actually took him away,
Wow.
shipped him all over the world, days of traveling. In that time, planes weren't as fast as today. Dropped him in the Netherlands, 9 years old, and he had to work all of his life, right? He had to go to school himself, 9 years old, dropped at an uncle, working in a restaurant.
Hmm.
And he basically did that, build up a life, but the one thing he always wanted, truly in his core, in his soul, was to be back home, right? As his mom.
Yeah.
The problem was in the Netherlands, he was earning a lot of money, right? He had a business going on, he was doing a lot of stuff. And so, he was sending back to his home country, was sending money every month. He built schools, he
Yeah.
built a house for his family, his mom, his brothers. They were living, I've been there, spent time with them there.
Yeah.
I've been with him there. And he's built this house that one day he will go with pension and he will go live there, right? Like, there was always the thing. He will go back to his mom's at some point.
Yeah.
Until a couple of years ago, the doctor told him, you have 3 days to live, and it was done. Like, there was no more chance to go back there, right? And so while he was laying there, he whispered to my brothers, guys, I don't want to die here. I need to go back to my home, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be impossible. You got 3 days, it's done, right?
Yeah.
Doctors told us, no, it's impossible. Like, airplanes, like, will never let us take him with. The family, his wife, the cousin, everybody was like, are you crazy? Just,
Yeah.
we go home, we stay together a couple days, and that's it. And crazy enough, for 5 days long, I think about 100 people a day passed by his house to say goodbye to him. He had the biggest goodbye party of everyone I ever known. And when those 5 days were over, his question was, guys, it's 5 days, I'm still alive, I want to go home, right? And so somehow, some way, like, I'll have to go into all the details, it will be too long, but he convinced the doctors, convinced the airplanes, convinced family. Me and my brothers and him went onto a plane and we brought him back to Indonesia.
Oh,
Hell of a travel. He was falling asleep everywhere. He was dying, literally.
yeah.
And so we were on doubt all the time if we would make it, but eventually we dropped him off. And when we stepped out of the car in Java after days of traveling and hours of driving, and his mom came up to us, gave him a hug, and he said, you're finally back home, right? This time not for holidays, but you're back, right? And
Yeah.
it shows us that, even in life's last final moments, if that was truly the dream, you're against the odds dream, actually, right? Because you always wanted to go back. It was impossible to go back now. It's still worth fighting for, right? And I think my father actually teach that lesson to us, and he left that legacy behind.
Yeah.
He lived a couple more months there, actually, after we left him. Somehow, magically, he lost a bit of weight. He started to live, and then he passed away, got buried.
But he went a lot further than you thought, and he did it at home. And you just gave me a brilliant idea. This is where we're going to talk about this in our follow-up call. Me and you need to start a podcast or a little podcast series, and community members tell us their against all odds story.
Ooh, I'm down with it.
We make montages, and it's a continuing, ongoing series. And guess what the message of this is? Hope. That's just it. Like, that alone, I think, could drive you past anything, because people just need to hear these messages, right? That's why I do what I do.
Humanizing Web3. I love that.
Dude, we can do it right now. Guess who's got the number one humanized brand right here? You're talking to him. Okay, so here is what we're gonna do. I still have another question. We are now down to 7 minutes. So
Yes.
this is what we're gonna do. The next couple minutes, tell me about Final Bosu,
Sure.
what people can expect over the next month, anything that you can share. And I'll ask the last question. Like I said, we lit that digital campfire. We got pretty darn close, man. And this is going to be the beginning of something really, really beautiful. So I'm not worried about talking even more in the future. But you got, let's say, 7 minutes to give me the Bosu pitch.
Sure. Especially focused on like the upcoming time, right? I think our core focus right now is to get our PFP collectible out into the Web3 market and to onboard, a much larger group than we have operated with till today into our community. It's going to be really awesome. My brother has worked a very long time on this. It's really high quality. It's just the PFP that I would want to see in the space. It's accumulation of everything we've always loved. And we want to build this franchise. We have all these main characters. We have this storyline. And I look at it sort of in two aspects of Web 2 and Web 3, where Web 2 is all about IP expansion and licensing deals and really, expanding that IP into the anime audience and building. I think it's ultimately about building experiences for different audiences, right? You guys get the Web3 version, the anime audience gets, the anime version, and that audience get that version. I think that we can expand it into a lot of verticals. And so Web3 is all about community and ownership. I think that the future of IP franchises are no longer built just by studios and big corporations alone. I think it actually comes from community, where community and the fans that from day one are rallying and screaming behind it, can forever be a part of the brand and the brand's growth. And I think that is sort of the evolution of media franchises in general, right? And we see it happening around us in the space. And Final Bosu wants to play really hard in that field. Actually, back to my father. My father was a person that if you would go to his house, he would cook for you and he will give you food with, if you would go home, he will make sure that you take some food with home, because he was always giving and sharing with everybody. Right. And I want this Final Bosu brand to feel like that. I want it to feel like a brand that our community owns. Yes. Right. They all have a piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. And I think, like I was saying, like the podcast idea or some content series idea to highlight the community. I don't think I've seen a Web3 job do a good version of that themselves. Right. Like I've said, the community like Azuki has done a great job of sharing their own stories within their community, but the actual internal brand, right? Sharing the community stories. I actually did this in HAPE, right? I was open about my major depressive order, and if people would share their stories and then give a piece of advice to help, knowing that one of those pieces of advice is going to resonate different with someone, they got a HAPE list spot. And it was a really beautiful thing to see. So I love that insight, man. How about anything else before we close? I want to be cognizant of time, but I do have one last question.
Yeah, I think, the next weeks, there's a lot planned. We're going to roll out this campaign as we go. I would say that this first phase was all about introducing everybody to the franchise. And this next phase, it's all about the community and the identity that people can have within this universe. And, our upcoming launch is coming, and there's like a lot of stuff planned for after Mint directly. There's certain partnerships. So much things planned. It's going to be
get hyped, people. Get hyped. And so, with that being said, we're winding down. One last question. I've seen you on Spaces. You've done already a ton of podcasts. Seriously, genuine feedback about how Mikey G Web3 and the Midlife Crisis podcast went for you today. I would love to hear your thoughts.
I think it was really awesome. One that we had, some time together, because I felt like I could, open up. And as well, when we met like the other day, we done a call, right? And we're like, let's get to know each other and see if this podcast is going to be something. And you told me your story, your life story, actually. And I don't know, that gave me directly a feeling like I could be myself and open up. And so it's been beautiful. I feel like I I never went this deep anywhere else. And so I felt like the environment for it. And yeah, I'm just grateful that you set this up, man. I think even me, I hear my own story by going through it, and I'm like, oh wow, there's actually so much depth to it, right? And I'm happy if people can hear that, because in the end of the day, you know, especially in Web3, yeah, it's dehumanizing. Like I'm a person with a lot of passion and drive, and I think if you look at my life journey, it kind of makes sense that I ended up here in a way, right? And so I think that will show to people, and I think that's very helpful.
Thanks, man. I mean, that's literally what I'm going for. That's my only goal. And I'm firmly convinced that your story is going to deeply resonate with someone today. I've had hundreds of messages saying, like, hey, your podcast with X fundamentally changed the path of my life. And that's why I think I'm here on this earth. And I only can do that if people like you are willing to actually share and be authentic and be deep and meaningful about what you said. So I really, really appreciate that. And my final thoughts, man, like I said, beginning of a friendship, what's really rare in this space is when you get this, it happens only a few times. Someone like you that is genuine, that deeply cares, but then also has caught the hype wave, right? And that is getting this visibility. I think a lot of times Web3 gets hype and visibility for all financial purposes and reasons, and it usually ends in a shit show. I firmly believe people like you in this next wave of NFTs. JR is another example in the district, right? I'm part of his 111. The people like you are prime examples of what I think is going to be extremely successful in this next wave of NFTs and Web3 and building companies ultimately. So just don't change who you are, man. And I think on top of that, I really, really want to figure out how we can continue to make content together, because I think we both can convey this human element, this deep, genuine human connection, which is so critically missed in this space. And I think it's going to be one of the keys to your success is if you can continue to convey that. And then at the end of the day, the two things that you said that I think are most important everybody needs to hear, because this is what you want a leader to say. One, I don't give a shit if my back is up against the wall. I'm going to figure it out. Hence your motto, right? But two, you're never going to stop learning, because you're about to learn a shit ton over the next 2 months when you go through Mint and you release all these things. You get a lot of feedback. You're going to make mistakes, not going to be perfect. But if you got the mindset that you're going to continue to learn and grow, and you got a community back behind you that has this amazing mission statement of hope and against all odds, you're going to be great, man. You're going to do great. And I am here for you as a friend. I am here to continue to grow, learn, and live with you and make mistakes, but also cheer together as well too. So never, ever hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help. You've got a brother in Mikey G now, my man.
Let's go. Thanks, brother. Really appreciate you for everything.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I am ready to go. That was a pumped up day. Kev, thank you so much for sharing the information. Mikey G, Kev, final Bosu are out.
Let's go.